What are the authorities not telling you? Could we have a power grid go down on us in less than 2 years? My friends, that is exactly what some of them are privately concerned about. I have inside sources that have told me that the people in the FBI that are in charge of this area of of power grid security, believe that it will go down in 2 years or less, within the next 2 years. Wow, that's a huge statement. What in the world could that be based on? Well, one of the things could be just look at what happened with Operation Spiderweb in Russia. Look at what the Mossad did with drones in Iran. In fact, drones and non-state actors seem to be the thing they're worried about the most. Now, I've for years warned you about war. I've warned you about China. I've warned you about the effects of potential EMPs, how they could take our grid down and the vast damage that could be done by that. But drones are a game changer. They're changing everything in combat, the battlefields, and we're just not prepared for it yet. Our armaments, our military philosophy, our philosophy for homeland security right here has not adjusted to the reality that we're dealing with. And with our current architecture of our power grid, we may not be prepared for that. In fact, we're not. Now, I got to tell you that the power grid is actually very sophisticated. The power grid is, in fact, the most complex machine ever devised by mankind. It is incredible that it spans the entire United States, right here in the United States, continental United States, and Canada. It provides power to all the users in the United States and Canada, over 300 million people instantaneously. It instantaneously sources the amount of power that they need. There's not much in the way of power storage. That's one of the problems with renewables like solar and wind. Is the wind don't blow all the time and the sun don't shine all the time. And batteries are very expensive. Although they're working on that, they're still very expensive. And solar, hey, solar is great for the homestead, for the person, but you can't just turn on anything at any time, especially when the sun's not shining, even on your homestead. I know that. I live off grid right here in Arizona, and I designed my own 9 kW power system, and that's how I'm coming to you right now. It's through my own power. I am my own power company, and that's a good thing. That's one of the things we'll talk about in a little bit. My friends, there's a lot to be concerned with here. Like I said, our power is an incredible machine. The problem is that it has very vulnerable nodes in these large power transformers and substations I've warned you about for a long time, and it's distributed. It's a large, vast distributed system. And every bit of that is a target. All of that is targetable. As you might recall, I mentioned to you guys some years back and even showed you on the website from their own reports, where actually the IEEE did studies, the Institute for Electronic and Electrical Engineers, and it was vetted by the National Electric Liability Corporation, NERC, and published on the NERC website, stating that if you took down just 9 critical substations in the United States, that the whole grid could fail. And this was one of the things that was taken to the Iranian head of the Revolutionary Guard, who responded, "Nah, I got 20 targeted." This was years ago. Well, we haven't seen that transpire yet. It doesn't mean it won't. But the curious thing is, and we're going to talk a bit more about the grid and why, even if this don't transpire, you're going to have problems. We're going to have problems with our power going forward, no matter what. The grid absolutely eventually will go down unless something major changes. And we're going to talk about what some of those changes could be here and what you need to do. So buckle up. I'm Greg Allison with Green Gregs, and we're covering prepping news here today. It's things that you need to know, but this is not just news. This is a timeless article that will be good for you from here. As long as you got power to watch on, this is applicable. My friends, there are many different things that can bring our power grid down. Many. The sun, if we don't do anything right now, if we don't change the way our grid is, the sun will take the grid down. Absolutely. All these people say, well, the government take the grid down. Well, the only thing they got to do to take the grid down is keep doing what they're doing, which is nothing. really. And unfortunately, actually, the federal government doesn't really control all the grid. All they control is bulk power distribution on the big, transmission lines. So a lot of this is regulated by states and other entities because there's hundreds of power companies in the United States, all connecting up through this grid. It's why it's such an incredible machine that you can have so many players play into it. Yet it's also incredibly vulnerable. It is the Achilles heel that we live under. That, guys, without their power, none of your 14 critical systems that we need to maintain our civilization can continue. Electric power is the linchpin to all of them. Banking. Grid goes down, you got no money in the bank. The grid goes down, they're not pumping gasoline. Grid goes down, yeah. And hey, you might be fine. I'd be fine right here at home. I might even survive an EMP. I think I got a good shot at it. I'm planning to get backups for my charge controllers and my inverters. But that's all I really got to worry about here, and put them in Faraday cages. I'll do that. The batteries, my batteries are lead acid batteries. I don't have computer chips in them. That's why I chose them. Anyway, all that aside, here's what you got to worry about. You got to worry about, of course, EMP. If we get into a war, or even it could be a preemptive strike prior to a war, that it's always been military philosophy, and it's actually doctrinal in China and Russia, that if they go to war with the United States, the first thing they'll do is EMP us. And they also understand and believe that's our approach to dealing with war with them. So just bear that in mind. EMP is a part of warfare doctrine. And an EMP, as I've explained in the past, can be deadlier than a full-scale nuclear war, because radiation will be gone in 2 weeks after full-scale nuclear war. 9 out of 10 people were predicted to die by societal collapse within a year, according to EMP Congressional Task Force, the Congressional EMP Task Force. And they didn't even take into account some factors, several factors, like most farmers aren't even growing the food they eat. They're growing market food. And most of them don't even have a garden anymore. They didn't take into effect, what really worries me is the nuclear power plant spent fuel rod pulls. I'm not talking about the reactors. Everybody worries about the reactors. Forget about the reactors. You could scram those with boron. But the spent fuel rods outside, that's a whole other matter. They're evaporating water at 160 gallons a minute. And when those pumps that keep fresh water on run out of fuel, then there's ways to deal with these things. But it's not being done yet. And the radiation from that, there's more radioactive material in these spent fuel rod pools than there are in all the warheads on Earth, and they'll keep giving for decades. So that's what I worry about there. That stuff starts melting and burning. Nasty business, nasty business. All right, all that aside. And I do have the reports from Sandia National Laboratory showing that the zirconium alloy, zircaloy clad fuel rods, when hot, will burn on contact with air. Absolutely. Burn to a crisp. I've shown that too in here, so I'm not going to repeat that today. But what we're going to, so like I said, we worried about EMP. We worried about the sun. They worried about terrorists directly attacking the substations, like an attempt was done in Metcalf Station on April 16, 2013. We've worried now. It's thought that the Russians may have nuclear devices in orbit. China may, that could EMP us directly. And it's believed that North Korea may have the same thing. But all that aside, what the FBI is worried about, apparently, is non-state actors, individuals, rogue groups. Because there's a lot of groups that aren't exactly in love with America. And there must be something on their radar that they're worried about and they know about that they're not telling us. That's what is it they're not telling us? That is what I worry about. Why are they so worried about this one threat vector? Here we are standing on the precipice of World War III, and they're worried about some non-state actor. Is the drug cartels? Is it, what is it? What is it they're worried about? Is it some religious groups out of the Mideast that have been radicalized and see us as the great Satan? Maybe not part of the official sleeper cells, maybe a whole other set. I don't know, but something's got them worried. They've told my source that they did not think the grid would stand more than 2 years, possibly less. that they were pretty darn convinced it's going down. I hope they're wrong. I pray they're wrong. But they obviously know something. What could it be? Now, here's what we also know. We know the Chinese have hacked our grid. We know they've hacked the power sources, the solar arrays, the wind towers. They've hacked they've hacked the big transformers. They've hacked the SCADA devices that control how the grid operates. They've hacked your meters at your home. They've got our entire grid hacked from end to end. And that's not what they're worried about. Here we are on the precipice of potential war with China, and they're not even worried about that. They got something else is worrying them more. Something else has got them worried more than that. Wow. This is why you need to be prepared. This is why you need to get ready. But you know what? Even if they're wrong, and even the war don't occur, and all these things, our grid's got severe problems. We are taxing it more than ever. With the growth of data centers, AI centers, especially AI center power demands is expected to double or triple just by the year 2028. It's 3 years from now. So, and on top of that, we've put a lot of investment in electrical vehicles, and we're shutting down the old, reliable coal-fired plants and a lot of things like that. Now, some of them, there's one up the road from me in Joseph City. They just shut it down. They said it was so old and out of shape, it would cost more to fix it than building a new plant. And apparently, building a new plant now today, especially with all the regulations, is out the wazoo. Maybe we need to change the regulatory environment because. So what are they doing? They're still putting up windmills running like crazy. They got windmills and solar arrays, mainly windmills out in this area. Wow, guys, those windmills, I hate them. I hate looking at night, watching them blinking lights. It's like kind of disrupts my natural landscape where I can see. I don't see them too bad from where I'm at here, but you don't have to go far and you see these blinking lights, and that disrupts the aura of the being out in the desert to me. But anyway, all that aside, small price to pay, supposedly, if they were efficient. There's a whole another argument about their efficiency, how they break down, but they're intermittent. And it's hard to have a power system that gives you instantaneously the power you need when you need it, when your main power sources are intermittent solar or intermittent wind. Not the way to go. There's other options, and that's what we need to look at. Maybe more coal plants, fuel, hydrogen from the ground, geothermal. That's one. And small modular nuclear reactors. But here's the key thing. We absolutely got to get away from centralized systems. That is the key to this whole thing. Well, we need to harden the grid we have. We need to do that pronto. We need to put the surge blockers, the neutral surge blockers on those big transformers. That needs to be done because we still face the prospects of war with China. We still face the prospects if we don't do nothing, the sun's going to get sooner or later. So these are things we need to do to protect our grid. All that we have the technology. It's not been done. A lot of people think it has been. No. But we need to get away from centralized systems. Centralized distributed systems. Let me put that where you got all these little vulnerable nodes and all these interconnects going over long distance. All that stuff is target zones. In the world of drone warfare, just drone hatred, all that stuff is wide open vulnerable. I did a video on this channel some years ago called A Nuke in Every Pot. It wasn't about nukes. It was about weapons of mass destruction type capabilities proliferating and spreading into the hands and fingers of millions across the planet. Like bioweapons. And I had something else in mind, which I'm not going to talk about today, another type of technology that keeps me up at night. But drones fit in this context. And the problem is that if you get this kind of technology, technology is like a genie out of the bottle. You don't stop it. It keeps going. So eventually, as it proliferates, how do we survive with all the hatreds we have in the world today? Can we survive? And we may be there with AI and especially with drone technology. As drones get miniaturized, as they become more and more widely available, and as people start figuring out more and more what they can do with them, We're in scary times, guys. We're on scary grounds. Remember all these drones, New Jersey drones that were all over the country, especially around military bases. But oh, there's nothing to worry about here. Remember that? Remember that? Oh, just rest your pretty little head and go back to sleep. There's nothing to worry about here. You buy that? I don't. I don't buy that for a minute. I think that the story was so scary they didn't dare tell us. That's what I think. That they did not want to panic the public. And I think maybe some of them were ours. Like you said, there were ours. Yeah, maybe we were flying some around. So they could claim that. But I don't think they were all ours. Enough said on that. But still, they don't take the big drones. I could tell you how to take the grid down with a few small ones. A few small drones with some wire. It's not that hard to fry those transformers. I mean, fry them. What's the problem with that? You can't replace them. If the whole grid worked and power grid worked and you had communications, internet, and banking was still working when the grid goes down, which that's not true, it will not be the case. But if all that stuff was still working, it would take you 2 to 3 years just to get a new transformer on the loading dock from the time you ordered it. Of course, if you still had the people to put it all together, then theoretically, if you took all the, if you filed all these transformers, well, you put the grid back together in 10 years. But this is Humpty Dumpty. The grid's Humpty Dumpty, guys, as it's presently configured, because there ain't going to be the banking. There ain't going to be money. There's not going to be ways to order stuff. The internet will be gone. Your bank will be gone. You see what I'm saying? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? All these ways to fix things will be gone, including the people. Because what they said, 9 out of 10 people will be gone within a year. So you get something 2 or 3 years down. Who's going to put it together? It takes highly skilled individuals. And what 1/10 of them or less that are still surviving, I think that was a very optimistic number, by the way, will be scratching to survive and to protect mom and kids at home or whoever they're trying to protect, maybe their own rusty rear ends. You see what I'm saying, guys? It's not going to be pretty. The whole society will fall apart. Even the COG plans, best laid plans of the government, they won't run out too long. They're deluding themselves and thinking they got security. It will last them a few months, maybe a year, but eventually they're going to be running into problems too. So the best thing you can do personally is have your own power. That's what I've done. Off grid. That's what I've done. And you know what? I will probably eventually I'll do a video on this. Maybe I'll offer a course and some other things, but I'm planning to offer some courses on other prepping survival things. I plan to offer other things to help you guys. I designed my own grid, though, guys. I designed it. That's how I'm coming to you. I am an electrical engineer and a prepper and a rocket scientist. So I know a few things about this, and I'm a military guy. Been in the military. So studied military strategy since I was a teenager, actually. I showed y'all the thick books I was reading when everybody else was watching sports games. Anyway, so my friends, this is something to take seriously. This is something you need to be prepared for, but you better be prepared to live without power. Because even if you got your own grid going, you got your own power at home, you keep a refrigerator going, keep a fan blowing until they wear out. Buy hand tools. I've done many videos on this channel years ago going to the flea market, shopping for hand tools. I showed you guys the attributes of what's a good hoe, what's not a good hoe. No, I'm not talking about downtown. I'm talking about what you garden with. But these are important tips to know. I've covered that in videos past. You'll have to really search for them. I got some good stuff on there. But the key thing is that the gas stations ain't going to be running. Your bank account's going to be gone. You think you're going to be getting that Social Security check or that EBT check? No. Those systems wouldn't even be in existence. And even if they were, their sources of revenue would be gone. We're talking total societal collapse. Now, at the societal level, there's things that they need to do. Harden the grid, for one. Harden those transformers. But two, we got to start moving rapidly away from the centralized grid as a nation. We got to go to these small modular nuclear reactors, microgrids, and whatever else we need. We got to start disconnecting the grid and going local. local, 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 local. Just like I advocate you to do personally. Have your own power. If nothing else, at least have backup power, especially if you require, CPAP or some other machine to keep you alive, keep you going. You need some power for that. Most of my viewers are really close to my age. I think the bulk of you are just a little bit younger than me, according to YouTube. But lots of you are in my age group. And those that aren't will be here before you know it. So, guys, time moves fast. So these are things we need to talk about. You got to grow your own food. That's probably one of the most, be able to filter your own water. So I'm going to show you a few websites to back up a little bit of what I'm saying and some of the problems of grid. I'm not going to be long on it like I am sometimes. We're going to go through this fast. And I'm just going to show a handful of things just to kind of give you guys an idea what we're talking about here. So, um, even if it all works well, this is what I'm showing you is the go path, the success path. If things are working well, they're not really working well because our grid, well, for one, our grid's old. A lot of this stuff is decades old, old, old. I mean, you look Wilson Dam, they got big wood bearings inside the turbines that came from the Brazilian rainforest 100 years ago. I'm serious, guys. We got some old stuff in our grid. So hang on, guys. Let's see. Yeah, that's in Alabama under TVA, the Wilson Dam. Anybody from Hunts Patch knows what I'm talking about. As electric bills rise, evidence mounts. The data centers share blame and states feel pressure to act. Well, yeah. So what's happening is, according to this article, is that the ratepayers are picking up the difference to cover the cost of the AI centers going in. And some states are balking at that and trying to force the rates to stay down and to force the AI centers to pay their own. That's probably a good thing because they ought to be forced to put in their own small modular nuclear reactors because they claim that one training session for one AI can take 1 gigawatt of electricity. And like I said, these things here are expected to require up to, they're expected to be double or triple their current demand by the year 2028. And currently, they're running about 6.7% overall of the complete demand on the power grid. And it's expected to go up to 12% or higher by 2028. So we're going to be in 2030, guys. So, we got the potential war maybe with China by 2027. I don't know what year it's really going to happen. They'll play Sun Tzu on us, maybe move faster if it's to happen. So, guys, if you're going to grow your own, the links are below for True Leaf Market and for Eden Brothers. They have the heirloom seeds where you can save the seeds and replant them and get the same plant back, and they're non-GMO. So this is good, healthy stuff. So check out my links to that because it helps my channel if you use my links to purchase these things. I don't have to tell someone, hey, Greg, I bought Truly. I said, that's great. Good for you. But then I found out they didn't use my links. So, okay. Well, please use my links if you can because it won't cost you a dime more, but it helps me. All righty, guys. All right. Confirmed electric vehicles, solar panels, wind turbines depend on a single mine in China, and it's destroying the land and the people. Yeah. So yeah, all this talk about this stuff, the EVs and solar panels being so environmentally great, that's a whole nother topic. And I touched on that in a recent video, which basically I laid the, it turns out that most of the microplastics and PFAS we're dealing with in our environment comes from car tires. And the cars that contribute the most are the EVs by a long shot, up to 40% more. In fact, it's worse than tailpipe emissions, which everybody they're saying we're trying to stop. And I've shown reports on that. And I didn't give me any views on it. Oh, well. And here is a report from Nuke talking about this summer. The summer's midway through where you got elevated chances of power outage. It's going to get worse year by year, guys. Elevated prospects for power outage just due to over demand. So we're talking about brownouts and blackouts coming, even if nothing else I talked about takes place. This is your National American Electric Reliability Corporation, North American Electric Reliability Corporation. I always get confused because we have the Federal Electric Reliability. We got NERC and FERC. So, and they got an incestuous relationship between them. So, yeah, this is what we're talking about here, guys. So check it out. But there are solutions, like I mentioned. The Denver airport even is looking at going to a small modular nuclear reactor. I think that's a good thing. I think all our plants and AI centers and airports and military is looking at it too. Well, I lost an article on that. I thought I had an article on the military. I did. I closed it accidentally. Okay. There's a report of the military. Maybe I'll go live here soon. I'm probably going to put this up tomorrow, though. Anyway, so we got investigation to investigate foreign control of smart appliances. This is to look at Chinese hacking of all your Internet of Things in your house. That's not really going where we need, but maybe a step in the right direction. Let me stop this share. I'll be close the article I wanted to show you guys. The main one was how the military bases, the Air Force in particular, is looking at going more and more to small modular nuclear reactors. And that would be a good thing. That's what's needed. They need to go off. See, they're actually using civilian power grid. A lot of people don't realize that. Our military bases are on the civilian power grid. So it goes down. They're in trouble. So we need to first and foremost protect those things that's most critical, which includes major infrastructure things like hospitals, maybe some data centers, and make sure your bank don't get wiped out. If you don't keep your checking account going. Well, we're a long ways from having the kind of power grid we would have to be resilient in the way I'm talking about. Because just putting a few data centers on small modular nuclear reactors, a few military bases, and maybe an airport or two, that's a good start, but that's a long way from the total power demand that we have. Everything needs to go as much as possible to a localized microgrid. I'm a big fan of that, have been since before my first power grid defense conference back in 2016. I've chaired 2 power grid defense conferences myself, so I know a little bit about this topic. All right, my friends. So the bottom line, you need to advocate your state, local utilities, companies you work for, whatever, to try to go independent power as much as possible. If it means your own solar, and I'm not a big fan of putting the whole country under acres and acres of solar panels that we don't even know how to dispose, or wind turbines that we don't know how to dispose of the blades. It's going to be an environmental mess a few years from now on. It stuff wears out. But for your own purposes, on your own homestead, your own house, being independent is a good thing. Be as independent as you can. That's what the powers that be have tried to drive us away from independence, want to make us more dependent. Well, guess what? That's not sustainable. They tell us what we're doing is not sustainable. No, that's not sustainable, because all that's targetable, fellable, bring a downable. It's all something that can be too easily defeated by too many methods. And sooner or later, somebody's going to do it. And for some reason, the FBI is really concerned about something happening really soon from some non-state actors. At least that's what they claim to my source. So that's something to keep your eyes wide open, friends. And like I always say, keep your eyes wide open, head on the swivel. Guys, it's coming at us from every direction. We don't know how this is going to play out, but the future is going to be a big challenge. So all I can tell you is prep and pray. And let's hope this stuff don't pan out this way. But get yourselves ready. Buy hand tools. Get on your own grid. Go off grid. Some places don't permit that, supposedly. That comes from Alabama, where I left. I knew a guy that got arrested because he lived off grid in Madison County. That's stupid. Really stupid. Well, they don't do that here because a lot of us have to be off grid out here. We have no choice. That's the only reason I came here. That was my choice. I was real happy with the idea of not being on the grid. And I am right now. So do that if you can, and I will offer resources on that in the future. So thank you for watching, everyone. Take care. Eyes wide open, head on the swivel. And with that, I am going to say, stop this video.